1939, when Russia forced Japan to sign an armistice agreement. Just 16 days earlier, Nazi Germany had invaded Poland, touching off World War II. This war, conceived in the minds of two dictators, Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, took the lives of millions and changed the world forever. Meanwhile, the slaughter in the Far East continued as Imperial Japan occupied more and more of China and Southeast Asia.
Why, if the Chinese, who in all their 4,000 years of history have never waged an aggressive war, been forced to fight and die by the millions? Because China is land, 4 million square miles of it, and because China is people, 450 million of them, and because Japan had a plan to use them both. Phase 1, the conquest of Manchuria for raw materials. Phase 2, the absorption of China for manpower. Phase 3, a triumphant sweep to the south to seize the riches of the Indies. Phase 4, the eastward move to crush the United States. One fact was obvious. China was to be the giant back on which Japan would ride to world conquest, just as Russia was to be enslaved for German use.
On December 7th, 1941, Imperial Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, destroying most of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. 2,402 Americans were killed and 1,828 wounded. The attack came as a profound shock to the American people, and as a result, the United States of America entered World War II. As Japan conquered more and more countries in Asia, hideous war crimes, which have been well documented, continued to escalate. The 1945 Nuremberg Charter defines war crimes as, quote, violations of the laws or customs of war, which include crimes against enemy civilians and combatants. Japanese war crimes ranged from massacres of non-combatant civilians to horrific experiments with humans, biological warfare, and the use of weapons of mass destruction. Most European nations had already realized their imperial colonial conquests when, in the late 19th century, Japan followed the lead of those world powers, developing their own imperial colonialism and pursued their objectives aggressively. The Scorched Earth strategy, sanctioned by Emperor Hirohito himself, directed Japanese imperial forces to kill all, burn all, and destroy all. This policy, also called the Three Alls policy, was implemented with brutal force in China by General Yasushi Okamura and resulted in the killing of millions of Chinese. Most of them were males between the ages of 15 and 60, suspected of being potential threats to Imperial Japan. Okamura was convicted of war crimes at the Tokyo Tribunal, but never served his sentence and died in 1966 at his home in Tokyo. Based in a suburb of Harbin, the largest city in the Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo, the infamous Unit 731 conducted ghastly experiments, including but not limited to vivisection